I died. On a snowy night, the broken tiles of the cold palace couldn't block the bitter wind. I curled up in a moldy quilt, listening to the faint sounds of string and woodwind music drifting from afar. Tonight was New Year's Eve. The emperor was again hosting a banquet for his ministers, while I, once honored as the empress, couldn't even beg for a single mouthful of hot porridge. Your Highness, Your Highness. Yanqiu's voice grew weaker and weaker. She had developed a high fever 3 days before me, and was now on the verge of death. I held her withered, bony hand, remembering how she had accompanied me from the Eastern Palace, all the way to the position of Empress, then followed me into this bottomless abyss. A lifetime of unwavering loyalty, only to meet such an end. If there is a next life, I murmured to myself, my throat so dry it ached. If there is a next life, my consciousness gradually faded. I seemed to see Duaning standing before me, still so young and beautiful, wearing that pale pink ruquan from when we first met. Consort, you are awake? I snapped my eyes open, and what came into view was Yanqiu's young, vibrant face. She was holding a steaming bowl of pregnancy, stabilizing medicine, looking at me with a beaming smile. His Highness, the Crown Prince specially instructed this morning that since Consort has been suffering from severe morning sickness lately, the kitchen should prepare some light porridge. Yanqiu helped me sit up and placed a soft pillow behind my back. The imperial physician said your pregnancy is progressing excellently. It is sure to be a healthy little prince or princess. I stared blankly at my flat belly, my fingers unconsciously stroking it. This is Chenjie, my first child, the one who died young. Looking around, this was my bedchamber in the Eastern Palace from back then. What day? Is it today? My voice trembled slightly. Replying to the secondary consort, today is the 8th of the 4th month. Yanqiu looked at me with confusion. Have you forgotten? The eldest miss is coming to see you today. Duaning, my heart jolted. It was today, it was this very visit, that the Crown Prince fell in love at first sight with my legitimate elder sister, Duaning, changing my life forever. In my previous life, I hated this day so much, hated Duaning so much for stealing my husband. But now, my heart was strangely calm. Help me with my makeup, I said softly. No need to be too elaborate, just keep it simple. When Duaning arrived, I was admiring flowers in the back garden. Little sister. She walked over with a smile, a pale pink ruquan dress making her skin look like snow. In my previous life, I was so jealous of her beauty, but looking at her now, it only felt like a lifetime ago. She was indeed beautiful, breathtakingly so. But so what? Elder sister, I gave a faint smile without rising to greet her. Duaning seemed a bit surprised by my coldness, but quickly smiled again. I heard little sister is expecting. Father and mother were overjoyed, and specially asked me to bring some tonics. She gestured for the maid behind her to present several exquisite brocade boxes. I had Yanqiu accept it, thanked her, but didn't say much more. Sister, you don't look too well today? Duaning asked with concern. Is it discomfort from the pregnancy? A bit tired. I said indifferently, Sister has come from afar. Why not go to the front hall for tea first? I'll come after I change my clothes. I deliberately stalled for time, staying in the bedchamber for an extra half hour. In my past life, I was eager to show off the Crown Prince's favor toward me to Duaning, so I specifically arranged for her to come before the Crown Prince left the residence. But now, I only wanted to avoid this fated encounter. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. When I leisurely walked to the front hall, His Highness, the Crown Prince, was already sitting there, chatting happily with Duaning. The way he looked at her, it was that familiar amazement and infatuation. Your Highness, I curtsied calmly. Nianqing, you are here. The Crown Prince smiled and beckoned me over. Your sister is truly talented and beautiful. We were just discussing poetry, and her insights are quite extraordinary. Duaning lowered her head shyly. Your Highness flatters me. I watched this scene quietly, my heart as still as water. In my past life, I should have been heartbroken at this moment. But now, I only found it laughable. Men, always chasing what they can't have. Sister is indeed exceptionally talented, I said with a smile. This concubine is feeling a bit tired and will take her leave first. Your Highness and sister, please take your time chatting. The Crown Prince was somewhat surprised by my attitude, but his attention was soon drawn back to Duaning. I turned and left, without a trace of reluctance. After that day, the Crown Prince visited the Shen residence more and more frequently. I focused on nurturing my pregnancy, no longer inquiring about his whereabouts. Occasionally, when he came to my courtyard, I would just serve him as a matter of routine, no longer going to great lengths to please him, like in my previous life. Consort, why aren't you worried at all? Yanqiu said anxiously. His Highness the Crown Prince hasn't come to our courtyard for 5 days in a row. I heard the eldest miss. Yanqiu, I interrupted her. Go fetch the little garment I've half embroidered. The sunlight is nice today. I want to finish it in the courtyard. I wasn't worried because I knew the ending. Duaning would enter the Eastern Palace, would become the Crown Prince's official consort, and I would forever live in her shadow. In my previous life, I exhausted every means to compete with her for favor, ultimately harming others and myself. In this life, I decided to let go. 3 months later, as expected, the Crown Prince petitioned the Emperor to take Duaning as his official consort. On the day the imperial edict was issued, he rarely came to my courtyard. Nianqing. He began somewhat awkwardly. You know, Duaning, this concubine understands. I said calmly, elder sister is both talented and beautiful. It is only fitting for her to become the Crown Princess. This concubine will keep to my place, and won't put your Highness in a difficult position. The Crown Prince seemed not to expect me to be so understanding. He was stunned for a moment, gratitude showing in his eyes. You've always been so sensible. Sensible. I had heard those 2 words countless times in my previous life. The Empress should be sensible. The wife should be sensible. The woman should be sensible. But what did being sensible get me? Just a pile of dry bones in the cold palace. Your Highness, I have a request. I looked up at him. Go ahead. I wish to move to Chiwu Courtyard in the west to nurture my pregnancy. It is quieter there. The Crown Prince hesitated for a moment. That place is a bit remote, and you are pregnant. The imperial physician said my pregnancy is stable. It won't be a problem, I insisted. Besides, after my sister enters the Eastern Palace, there will be many affairs in the residence. I wish to avoid all this turmoil. In the end, he agreed. 3 days later, I moved to Chiwu Courtyard with Yanqiu and a few personal maids. It was indeed secluded, but the advantage was its quietness. I could stay away from troubles and peacefully wait for the child to be born. Chenji was born on a rainy night. When Chenji's loud cry rang out, tears streamed down my face. In my previous life, he died young due to harem struggles, becoming the pain of my lifetime. In this life, I swore to protect him completely. My lady, it is a healthy little prince. The midwife joyfully held up the swaddled baby for me to see. I carefully took him, looking at the rosy little face in my arms, my heart filled with tenderness. This was my flesh and blood, the most important person in my life. The Crown Prince only came to see us mother and son 3 days later. His face was full of joy, holding Chenji and unable to put him down. Nianqing, you've given this Crown Prince a fine son, he said happily. Father Emperor was also very pleased when he found out, and bestowed the name Chenji. I smiled weakly. Thank you, Your Highness. Duaning is also very happy. She specially prepared some tonics for you, he said casually, his eyes still fixed on the infant in his arms. I sneered coldly in my heart. Of course Duaning was happy. She probably couldn't wait for me to stay in Chiwu Courtyard forever. so I wouldn't disturb her loving life with the crown prince. In my past life, I hated this to the bone, but now it is exactly what I wished for. Your Highness, I have an unreasonable request, I said softly. Go ahead. I wish to continue living in Chiwu Courtyard. The environment here is quiet and serene, suitable for Chunji to grow up. And, I hesitated for a moment. Elder sister has just entered the residence. I don't want to disturb your newlywed life. The crown prince looked at me in surprise, a trace of guilt flashing in his eyes. Nianqing, you are always so considerate. All right, I'll send more people to take care of you and our son. After he left, Yanchu couldn't help but ask. Side consort, why did you request to stay in such a remote place? Now that the eldest miss has become the crown princess, you should even more. Should even more what? I interrupted her. Go fight for favor. Fight to the death. Yanchu, look at the chrysanthemums in this garden, blooming so quietly and freely. Why insist on being that gorgeous peony, attracting bees and butterflies, only to wither into mud in the end? Yanchu looked at me with a half-understanding expression, and said no more. The year the crown prince ascended the throne, Chunji was already 6 years old. Just like in my previous life, Duaning was made empress while I received the title of Shan Fei. Your Highness, Consort Li verbally offended the empress in the imperial garden again. Yanshuang came to report. I was teaching Chunji to write and said without looking up, it has nothing to do with us. But Consort Li has been getting more and more arrogant, relying on her father General Pei's merits. Today she actually mocked the empress for being old and faded. Yanshuang, I put down the brush. Go to the small kitchen and check if the pear soup I am stewing for Chunji is ready. Yanshuang retreated sullenly. Chunji looked up at me with his little face. Mother, why does Consort Li always bully Aunt Empress? I patted his head. Because they both like your father, and both want to win his favor. What about you, Mother? Don't you like father? I smiled. Having Chungi is enough for Mother. This was the truth. After rebirth, I saw through the illusion of an emperor's love. Rather than scheming to compete for favor, I'd rather raise my child well. After Chunjae died in my previous life, I became even more insane and ruthless. In this life, I only want him to grow up safely. Your Highness, His Majesty is coming this way. Yanshuang hurried back to report. I frowned slightly. Since entering the palace, I've deliberately avoided His Majesty, and he rarely comes to my Zhaohua palace. Why has he suddenly visited today? Before I could think further, His Majesty had already walked in. I led Chunye to quickly pay our respects. Rise. His Majesty's voice was even colder than I remembered. I was passing by Zhaohua Palace and realized I haven't seen Chungji in a while. I had Chungji step forward to greet him. His Majesty looked at his son, a rare hint of warmth appearing in his eyes. How are your studies? Reporting to Father Emperor, your son is currently studying the Analerta. His Majesty nodded with satisfaction, then looked at me. Consort Xian has taught him well. Your Majesty flatters me. His Majesty nodded, looking around. Your palace is quite elegant and simple. The furnishings in Zhaohua Palace were indeed simple. It lacked the extravagance of Consort Li's palace, nor was it as magnificent as the Empress's quarters. Just some plain porcelain and screens I had embroidered myself. This consort prefers tranquility. His Majesty stared at me for a long time, then suddenly asked, Consort Xian, do you resent me? My heart skipped a beat. This consort would not dare. Is it that you don't dare, or that you don't resent me? He pressed. Since entering the palace, you've avoided me like a snake or scorpion. Unless I came to find you, you never set foot near Qinzhang Hall. Back when we were at the prince's residence, you used to smile at me. There was an emotion in his voice I couldn't understand. Now that we're in the palace, we've grown distant instead. I lowered my eyes and said nothing. Should I say it is because I've seen through your fickleness and heartlessness? or tell you that your favor was nothing but flowers in a mirror, the moon and water. This concubine just feels, Your Majesty handles countless affairs daily, and shouldn't be troubled by trivial matters of the harem. The emperor let out a cold laugh. What a high-sounding excuse. Shanfei, I remember you weren't like this before. That is because back then I was still foolishly believing in love. I said in my heart, people change, Your Majesty. I raised my head, looking straight into his eyes. This concubine now only wishes to raise Changji well and be a content and dutiful consort. The emperor's gaze was complex and inscrutable. He reached out as if wanting to touch my face, but stopped mid-air and eventually withdrew. Never mind. He stood up. I'll come see Changji another day. Tomorrow the Empress is hosting a chrysanthemum viewing banquet. You should come too. Don't stay cooped up in the palace all the time. This concubine obeys. After he left, I let out a long sigh of relief. Yanchuang asked in a low voice, My lady, the emperor seems to care about you a lot. I shook my head. The heart of an emperor is unfathomable. He may care today, but tomorrow he can discard you like worn out shoes. Don't take it to heart. In this life, I only want to be a bystander. On the day of the chrysanthemum banquet, I deliberately chose a plain lotus, pink palace gown, with only 2 velvet flowers, and a silver hairpin adorning my hair bun, neither appearing shabby nor stealing the spotlight from the empress and consort lit. Mother looks so beautiful today. I crouched down to look at him. Chunjae, remember, no matter what you see at the banquet today, tell Mother when we return. You mustn't speak too much on the spot. He nodded obediently. Your son understands. Just like Mother said, gossip goes on all day long. But if you don't listen, it naturally doesn't exist. I touched his head with relief. In my previous life, I was obsessed with chasing power and never properly taught Chungae about the wickedness of people's hearts. In this life, I want him to stay away from these dirty struggles and become a reasonable and open-minded person. Yanchuang hurried in. My lady, it is getting late. We should set off now. I held Chengji's hand and walked out of Zhaohua Palace. The autumn sunlight gently fell upon the palace walls, making the glazed tiles glitter and shine. This imperial city, so beautiful, yet so cruel. The banquet had already been set up in the imperial garden. The empress sat upright in the seat of honor, a vermilion phoenix robe setting off her dignified elegance. Consort Li sat at her lower right, wearing a gorgeous rose, red palace gown, her hair full of pearls and jade, dazzlingly beautiful beyond compare. This consort greets Her Majesty the Empress. Duaning showed a sincere smile on her face, pointing to the seat at her lower left. Sister is here, sit here, so we sisters can have a chat. Hearing this, I stood up and took Chengji over to sit down. Consort Li coldly snorted. Her Majesty, the Empress is truly affectionate towards Sister Consort Shan, Duaning said gently. Consort Shan is my own sister, and has borne the eldest son for His Majesty. So naturally she deserves more care. So what if he is the eldest son? Consort Lai lightly waved her round fan. Speaking pointedly, he is not the legitimate heir anyway. I lowered my head to drink tea, finding it rather laughable. Does Consort Li know that the distinction between legitimate and illegitimate heirs originates from ritual, not birth? If we were to judge status by legitimacy, wouldn't that make the entire court laugh at the royal family? What is the point of fighting over these empty titles? In the end, we all become just a handful of dirt. Seeing that I was completely unmoved, Consort Li resentfully changed the subject. Your Majesty, the Empress, I heard that the Ministry of Rites is already preparing for the consort selection. I am afraid in another month or so, this palace will become quite lively. His Majesty has been on the throne for 3 years. It is indeed time to expand the harem. Consort Li is quite well informed. Consort Li parted her red lips slightly. I was thinking, When there are a few more princes and princesses to bring joy, the Empress Dowager will surely be pleased. She deliberately paused, as clever and adorable as the eldest prince. I laughed instead of getting angry. This palace forgot to congratulate Consort Li. I heard your palace recently acquired a Guanyin statue for granting children. This palace shall also go burn some incense another day. After all, in this harem, who can conceive a dragon seed still depends on the Bodhisattva's blessing. Consort Li's face instantly turned 3 shades paler. For a moment she didn't know how to retort, and could only glare at me with hatred. The Emperor's triennial consort selection ceremony came earlier than in my previous life. I sat below the Empress, scanning the maidens standing in the hall. Most were around 15 or 16 years old, as fresh as flower buds. A familiar name suddenly reached my ears. Yan Shu, daughter of Vice Minister of Ceremonies. Yan Huayan, age 15. I suddenly raised my head, looking toward the gracefully bowing figure in the center of the hall. Even though I was mentally prepared, seeing Yan Shu again still sent a jolt through my heart. She wore a light green palace dress, her features like a painting, her temperament refined and ethereal. The spitting image of Duaning in her youth. The hall fell silent instantly. I quietly glanced at the Emperor, only to see him staring fixedly at Yan Shu, not even noticing that the teacup in his hand had tilted. Meanwhile, Duaning's face had turned deathly pale, her fingers gripping the armrest tightly. "Keep the nameplate, bestow the sachet." The eunuch's shrill voice rang out. Yan Shu respectfully gave thanks. As she withdrew, she inadvertently raised her head, her gaze meeting mine. A hint of confusion flashed in her eyes, then quickly returned to calm. I swiftly averted my gaze, sighing inwardly. In this lifetime, we finally met Yan Shu. Yan Shu was bestowed the title of Wan Marin and granted residence at Shuyu Pavilion. This rank was higher than in the previous life, and the residence more luxurious. Clearly the Emperor valued her greatly. The Empress claimed illness and exempted everyone from the morning greetings. On my way to Funing Palace to pay respects to the Empress Dowager, I saw from afar a group of eunuchs and palace maids carrying various rewards toward Shuyu Pavilion, led by none other than Li Dequan, the Emperor's personal attendant. "Your Highness, shall we avoid them?" Yan Chuang asked softly. I shook my head. "No need. We'll go our own way." Just as I turned around a corridor, I came face to face with Consort Li. She was dressed especially glamorously today, her head full of pearls and jade glittering in the sunlight, yet it couldn't hide the gloom in her eyes. "Oh my. Isn't this Consort Xian?" Consort Li said with a fake smile. "What? Rushing to curry favor with the newly favored Wan Marin too?" I replied calmly. Consort Li jests. "I've just returned from paying respects to the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager sure does dote on you." Consort Li gave a cold snort. "But I advise you not to get too smug. You know very well who that Yan Shu resembles. Her Majesty, the Empress, is probably unable to eat or sleep in peace right now. Shouldn't you, as her illegitimate younger sister, go comfort her?" She deliberately emphasized the words illegitimate younger sister. I sneered inwardly. Consort Li was trying to provoke me into going against Yan Shu so she could reap the benefits. Her Majesty the Empress has His Majesty's concern. Why would this consort need to meddle? I said indifferently. Rather, Consort Li hasn't been looking well lately. Shall I summon the imperial physician to take a look? Consort Li's expression darkened. No need for your concern. With that, she flung her sleeves and left. Yan Shuang looked at me worriedly. My lady, Consort Li, seems to. Pay her no mind. I cut her off. Let's return to the palace. Chunji should be finishing his lessons soon. In the days that followed, the dynamics of the inner palace began to quietly shift. The Emperor summoned Yan Shu to his chambers almost every day, and rewards flowed like water into Shuyu residence. The Empress's illness kept relapsing, showing no signs of improvement. Consort Li frequently happened to encounter the Emperor in the Imperial Garden, but with little success. As for me, I continued to keep a low profile, focusing on teaching Chengji. Occasionally, I would pay respects to the Empress Dowager and listen to her talk about the happenings in the palace. On the Dragon Boat Festival, the palace held a banquet to celebrate. This was Yanshu's first formal appearance at a grand banquet since entering the palace, and everyone was waiting to see how this new favorite would perform. The banquet was set up around the pavilion in the Imperial Garden. I arrived a bit early and chose an inconspicuous seat. The Empress sat at the head, her face pale, forcing herself to respond to the consort's greetings. Consort Li sat to her lower right, her eyes constantly darting toward the entrance. Before long, a eunuch announced in a shrill voice, "His Majesty has arrived. Beauty Wan has arrived." Everyone hurriedly stood up to pay their respects. The Emperor walked in, holding Yanshu's hand, with a rarely seen pleased expression on his face. Yanshu wore a goose, yellow palace dress, with only a few pearl flowers pinned in her hair, yet it made her skin look like snow, radiantly beautiful beyond compare. "Rise, all of you." The Emperor waved his hand and personally helped Yanshu to her seat. Right next to Consort Li, Consort Li's face instantly turned ashen, and she nearly twisted her handkerchief to shreds. Duan Ning barely managed to maintain her smile, but the disappointment in her eyes was impossible to hide. After the banquet began, the dancing girls presented their carefully rehearsed dances. Amidst the clinking of cups and exchange of toasts, Consort Li suddenly stood up. "Your Majesty, this concubine has recently learned a new piece, and wishes to present it to you and all the sisters." The Emperor nodded carelessly. "Granted." Consort Li ordered someone to bring a guqin and played Finixerta, his mate. To be fair, her chin skills were indeed remarkable, but playing this piece expressing love and admiration at this moment was a bit too blatant. When the piece ended, the Emperor merely said, "Not bad," indifferently, then turned to chat and laugh quietly with Yanshu. The smile on Consort Li's face froze, and a hint of viciousness flashed in her eyes. "Beauty Wan," she suddenly raised her voice. "I've heard that younger sister is talented in many ways. Might you also present a piece?" Yanshu said humbly. "This concubine is of little talent and shallow learning. I dare not show off my meager skills before noble Consort Li." "Why must little sister be so modest?" Noble Consort Li persisted relentlessly. "His Majesty often praises little sister for being proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Today is a festive occasion, just perfect for letting all the sisters broaden their horizons." I could tell this was noble Consort Li's trap. If Yanshu refused, she would seem ungrateful for the honor. If she agreed, she would inevitably be compared to noble Consort Li. Yanshu looked toward His Majesty, who nodded slightly. She had no choice but to rise. "Then this concubine shall make a fool of herself." Surprisingly, Yanshu didn't choose the chin, but had someone bring a jade shao flute. The moment the shao sounded, the entire hall was astonished. I had never heard the melody before. Clear and melodious, as if weeping and pleading, leaving everyone utterly mesmerized. His Majesty's eyes grew brighter and brighter, until finally he couldn't help but tap along in admiration. Wonderful. Such a melody should only exist in heaven. How often can one hear it in the mortal world? Yanshu set down the jade shao and smiled shyly. "This is longing's melody, that this concubine composed herself. Please forgive my humble performance. My beloved consort is too modest," His Majesty said affectionately. "Lai Quan, bestow that pair of fat jade bracelets from our collection upon Beauty Wan." Noble Consort Li's face had turned utterly dreadful. She abruptly stood up. "Your Majesty, this concubine is feeling unwell and begs to take her leave." Without waiting for the Emperor to respond, she stormed off angrily. The atmosphere at the banquet became awkward for a moment. Duaning forced herself to say a few polite words, and only then could the banquet continue. But I noticed her gaze frequently fell on Yanshu. the emotions in her eyes complex and hard to discern. After returning to the palace, Yan Shuang couldn't help but say, "Your Highness, today Consort Li was really asking for humiliation." I replied indifferently, "The more she acts like this, the more the emperor will be annoyed." Sure enough, within a few days came the news that Consort Li was punished with a month of confinement for improper conduct before the emperor. As summer turned to autumn, Duaning's illness grew increasingly severe. When the Empress Dowager summoned me for a talk, she mentioned worriedly, "Duaning has been absent-minded these days. The imperial physician says it is melancholy weighing on her heart. The emperor hasn't visited her for a long time now." I remained silent. In my previous life, I couldn't wait for Duaning to fall from favor. But now, watching her step by step toward collapse, I actually felt a trace of reluctance to see it happen. The Empress Dowager gave me a meaningful look. "Go see her and advise her to let things go, among the women in this harem, who hasn't experienced falling out of favor." Inside Fengyi Palace, Duaning was so haggard, I almost couldn't recognize her. The once radiant empress was now emaciated, with dark circles beneath her eyes. "Little sister is here." She forced a smile. "Have a seat." I paid my respects and sat by her bedside. "Has elder sister been feeling any better lately?" "Better? How could I be better?" Duaning suddenly became agitated. "The emperor hasn't set foot in Fengyi Palace for 2 months. He only has eyes for that Yan Shu, that fake." I signaled the palace maids to withdraw, then said softly, "Sister, be careful with your words." "What do I have to fear?" Duaning smiled bitterly. "What is the difference between Fengyi Palace and the Cold Palace now? Nianqing, do you know? Yesterday was my birthday, and the emperor didn't even say a word, just had Li Dequan deliver the routine gifts." Her tears rolled down. "I gave him everything, yet he treats me like this." I didn't know how to comfort her. In my previous life, Duaning maintained the dignity and grace of an empress until her death, yet now she was breaking down and crying in front of me. Was it because, without my schemes against her, she found it even harder to accept the reality of losing favor? I chose my words carefully. The emperor is just temporarily enchanted by novelty. He will eventually understand who truly cares for him. Duaning shook her head, her eyes gradually becoming hollow. "Not anymore. I know the emperor, once his heart changes, he never looks back." She suddenly grabbed my hand. "Nianqing, do me a favor. Please tell me, sister. I want to see Yan Shu." Duaning's voice was so low it was almost inaudible. "See her alone." My heart jolted. What does sister want to do? "Don't worry, I won't harm her." Duaning smiled bitterly. "I just want to see what is so special about the woman who replaced me." I hesitated. In my previous life, Duaning and Yan Shu had almost no direct interaction. What consequences would this meeting bring now? After leaving Fengyi Palace, I went straight to Shuyu Studio. Yan Shu was quite surprised to see me, and hurriedly stood up to greet me. "How could noble consort come here in person? It should be this humble concubine who goes to pay respects to you." I sized her up. In just a few months, Yan Shu had shed the naivety from when she first entered the palace, and had gained more composure and confidence in her speech and manners. "Beauty Wan is too polite," I said plainly. "I came today to deliver a message on behalf of the Empress." Hearing the words "Empress," Yan Shu's eyes flickered for a moment. "Please speak, your ladyship." "The Empress wishes to see you alone, tomorrow at noon, in the back garden of Fengyi Palace." Yan Shu slightly furrowed her brow. "This doesn't follow protocol, does it?" "Indeed it doesn't." I looked straight into her eyes. "So whether to go or not is entirely up to you, Beauty Wan." After saying that, I turned and left, not giving her a chance to ask further. I had done all I could, and the rest was up to their own fate. The next day, when Chengji came back from his lessons, I was trimming a pot of chrysanthemums. "Mother!" He ran in excitedly. Your son studied the Minerta today, and Grand Tutor Zhang praised me for understanding it well. I put down the scissors and wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Take your time. Don't rush. Mother, your son has a question. Chunjai suddenly lowered his voice. Why doesn't Father Emperor like the Empress anymore? Isn't she the woman Father Emperor loves most? My heart skipped a beat. Who told you all this? Everyone in the palace is talking about it. Chunji blinked his big eyes. They say Lady Wan looks like Mother Empress when she was young. That is why Father Emperor favors her so much. I pulled him to sit down. Chunji, remember what Mother Consort tells you, in this harem. Love is the most unreliable thing. Being favored today, losing favor tomorrow. That is all normal. What matters is staying true to yourself, and not being swayed by outside things. Chenji nodded, half understanding. Like Mother Consort. I smiled. Yes, just like Mother Consort. Then, what if one day Father Emperor doesn't like me anymore? My heart ached as I pulled him into my arms. That won't happen. You are his eldest son. He'll always care about you. And I cupped his little face. No matter what happens, Mother Consort will always be by your side. Chunji leaned against me and suddenly said, Mother Consort, when I grow up, I'll protect you and won't let anyone bully you. My eyes instantly welled up with tears. The child who had left me in my past life was now healthy and lively in my arms, saying he would protect me. This was heaven's greatest gift to me. Good boy! I kissed his forehead. But for now, let Mother Consort protect you. Just as I was speaking, Yanchuang hurried in. Your Highness, something happened at Fengyi Palace. When I rushed to Fengyi Palace, the scene was in complete chaos. Duaning had fainted at the stone table in the garden. Yanshu was anxiously pressing her philtrum, and several palace maids stood by at a loss. What is going on? I hurried forward. Yanshu saw me as if seeing a savior. Consort Xian, the Empress, suddenly fainted. This concubine. Stop talking. Summon the imperial physician first. I interrupted her, while gesturing for Yan Shuang to help support Duan Ning into the inner chamber. Yan Shu hesitated for a moment. Should this concubine take her leave first? I gave her a deep look. What do you think? She bit her lip. This concubine understands. Today, this concubine was never at Fengyi Palace. Smart as Yan Shu was, she naturally understood the stakes involved. If people learned that the Empress fainted while receiving a favored consort, who knows what kind of storm it would stir up. After Yan Shu hurriedly left, the imperial physician also arrived. The diagnosis was that the Empress had long been harboring melancholy in her heart, combined with irregular eating, leading to deficiency of both qi and blood, requiring rest and recuperation. I sent someone to deliver a message to the Hall of Diligent Governance, but was told His Majesty was discussing matters with ministers and had no time to come. He only sent word for the Empress to rest well, and that the imperial physician would be on standby at all times. When Duan Ning woke up, it was already dusk. She saw me keeping watch by the bedside, and a hint of disappointment flashed in her eyes. He didn't come, did he? She asked weakly. I didn't answer, just helped her sit up and handed over a bowl of ginseng soup. Sister, drink some ginseng soup first to perk yourself up. Duan Ning mechanically took a few sips, then suddenly asked, Yan Shu, what did she tell you? Nothing, I said softly. She had just arrived when Sister fainted. Duan Ning smiled bitterly. You know, she really is special. It is not just that she looks like me when I was young. She is clever, perceptive, and knows how to read the situation. Most importantly, when she talks about His Majesty, her eyes show admiration and adoration, but not this crazy obsession I have. I listened quietly, my heart filled with emotions. Duaning had always maintained the pride of an empress in front of others, yet now she was dissecting her own failures before me. Sister, get some rest. I tucked in the corners of her blanket. Some things cannot be forced. Duaning suddenly grabbed my hand. Nianxing, you've changed. Back when you were in the Eastern Palace, your eyes and heart were all for His Majesty. But now, you watch all of this as if watching a play. My heart trembled. I never expected that the one who understood me best would be the person I once hated most. People change, I answered softly. After the Double Ninth Festival, the weather gradually turned cold. That day, I was teaching Chunji calligraphy in the study when Yan Shuang hurried in to announce, "Your Highness, Beauty Wan requests an audience." The brush in my hand paused slightly. Yanshu had been in the palace for over half a year, and this was the first time she had taken the initiative to come to Zhaohua Palace. Ask her to wait in the main hall. I set down the brush. Chunye, practice on your own for now. In the main hall, Yanshu was admiring a landscape painting hanging on the wall. Hearing footsteps, she turned around and curtsied. This concubine apologizes for the intrusion. Please forgive me, noble consort Shan. Lady Wan is too polite. I gestured for her to sit down. I wonder what brings you here today. After the palace maids served tea and refreshments, and withdrew, Yan Shu gently sipped her tea before speaking. Actually, this concubine came to express gratitude. Express gratitude, that day at Fengyi Palace. If your ladyship hadn't arrived in time, this concubine would have. She trailed off, a hint of lingering fear flashing in her eyes. I smiled faintly. Lady Wan speaks too seriously. The Empress merely felt unwell for a moment. It had nothing to do with you. Yanshu looked at me deeply. Your ladyship is indeed as kind as the rumors say. It is just. She lowered her voice. This concubine always feels that your ladyship seemed to have known what would happen all along. My heart trembled slightly. Yanshu was indeed clever and perceptive. It was just a coincidence, I said dismissively. Rather, it is Lady Wan who took quite a risk meeting the Empress privately. Yanshu smiled bitterly. How could this concubine not know? But when the Empress invites, one dares not refuse. She hesitated for a moment. Your ladyship, this concubine has a favor to ask. Please speak freely. Since entering the palace, this concubine has always heard that noble consort Xian has a tranquil temperament and doesn't compete with others. Yanshu said sincerely, in this inner palace, this concubine treads on thin ice. I wish to ask your ladyship for some guidance. I scrutinized the exceptionally clever woman before me. In my past life, she was also my greatest enemy. We fought to the death. And now, she has actually come to seek my guidance. Lady Wan overestimates me. I slowly shook my head. I am merely an idle person ignorant of worldly affairs. What could I possibly teach you? Yanshu seemed to have anticipated my refusal. Your Highness is too modest. Though I haven't been in the palace long, I can tell that your Highness is deeply beloved by the Empress Dowager, and even His Majesty shows you exceptional respect. This is surely no coincidence. I smiled without speaking. She continued, I dare not hope for your Highness's protection. I only wish that in times of danger, I might receive a word of warning from your Highness. With the conversation having reached this point, refusing further would seem deliberate. After a moment of contemplation, I spoke. Since Lady Wan is so sincere, I'll say one thing, be wary of consort. Li. Yanshu was grateful. I understand. Thank you, Your Highness. As she rose to take her leave, she suddenly noticed a copy of Zhuangzi on the table and asked curiously, Your Highness also reads Zhuangzi. I flip through it occasionally. I answered casually. When the spring dries up, the fish find themselves stranded on land, moistening each other with their breath, wetting each other with their spittle. Better to forget each other in the rivers and lakes. Quite interesting. Yanshu looked thoughtful. I rather think that once stranded on land, instead of forgetting each other, it is better to help each other. I was slightly taken aback, not expecting her to interpret it this way. Perhaps so, I said indifferently. Yan Shuang, escort Lady Wan out. In mid-October, the emperor held a riding and archery competition for the princes in the imperial garden. Cheng Yi was 10 years old, and under my deliberate training, his riding and archery skills had already surpassed the other princes. I didn't expect him to sit on that throne, only hoped that no matter what happened in the future, he could protect himself. Imperial Mother, I am nervous. Before setting off, Cheng Yi held my hand and whispered. I crouched down to adjust his collar. Remember what Mother said. Just do your best. Don't worry about winning or losing. At the competition, the princes took turns to perform. The third prince, born to the late noble consort Hui, was already 9 years old with excellent archery skills. The fourth prince, born to consort Liu, was only 6 years old, but also performed well with the help of attendants. When it was Cheng Yi's turn, his first arrow missed, and some people snickered around him. I nervously clutched my handkerchief, but saw Cheng Yi take a deep breath and nock another arrow. The third arrow, the fourth arrow. Cheng Yi shot better and better, earning applause from everyone. Excellent. The emperor rarely smiled, worthy of being my son. Li Dequan, bestow my small golden bow to the first prince. Cheng Yi ran over excitedly. Mother, did you see? I won. I patted his head. Mother saw Cheng Yi did so well. Father Emperor praised me. His eyes were sparkling. He said I am like him when he was little. A warmth filled my heart. In this life, at least I've given them more time together as father and son, letting Chunji feel more fatherly love. Noble consort, the emperor had walked up beside me at some point. Chunji's horseback archery. You've put in a lot of effort. I curtsied and said, Your Majesty, it is the tutors who taught him well. This concubine merely offered occasional reminders. No need for modesty. The emperor gazed at Chunji in the distance, who was showing off his little golden bow to the eunuchs. This child is naturally gifted and willing to work hard. He will surely achieve greatness in the future. I lowered my head to hide the complicated emotions in my eyes. Your Majesty flatters him. I have decided, the emperor suddenly said. Starting tomorrow, Cheng Yi shall come to the Hall of Diligent Governance for an hour after his lessons each day. I will personally teach him state affairs. My heart trembled. This had never happened in my previous life. As the eldest son, if Chengje could receive the emperor's personal guidance. In the future, this concubine. Thanks, Your Majesty, for this grace on Chengye's behalf. I suppressed my inner excitement and said calmly. The emperor gave me a meaningful look. Noble consort, you are always so restrained. With that, he turned and left, leaving me standing there, my heart surging with emotions. When the first snow of November fell, Duaning sent someone to invite me to the Phoenix Palace. I had thought she was unwell again. But unexpectedly, upon entering, I found her looking quite well, arranging flowers in the warm chamber. Little sister is here, she greeted me with a smile. Come quickly and try the newly tributed Longjing tea. I gave a bow and sat down across from her. Elder sister looks radiant today. I figured some things out, so naturally I am better. Duaning personally poured tea for me. Speaking of which, I must thank you for your guidance that day, younger sister. I was somewhat surprised. This concubine didn't say anything. Precisely because you said nothing. Duaning's gaze was clear and calm. That day when I woke up and saw you watching by my bedside, there was no pity in your eyes, no mockery, just calm. At that moment, I suddenly understood that in this harem, one could actually live like this. I silently drank my tea, unsure how to respond. I've thought about a lot these past days, Duaning continued. After marrying His Majesty, I tied my entire being to him. When he loved me, I felt like the happiest person in the world. When he was cold, I felt like I'd fallen into hell. She gently caressed a white chrysanthemum. Until I saw you, Nianqing, do you know? I actually started to envy you. Envy me, envy your carefree spirit, Duaning said sincerely. You have your own world, Chunjae, poetry and books, flowers and plants. All these can bring you happiness. I set down the teacup, my heart a mix of emotions. In my past life, Duaning was my enemy until her death. Yet now, she actually sees me as a role model. I said softly. Elder sister flatters me too much. Duaning shook her head. No need to be modest. I invited you here today to tell you that I've decided to go back to being the empress I should be. No more feeling sorry for myself over the emperor's neglect. No more being jealous of Yan Shu. I want to learn to live like you do. Looking at her determined eyes, I suddenly felt a bit moved. Perhaps Duaning had always been this perceptive deep down. It is just that these palace intrigues twisted her true nature. If sister can think this way, it is truly a blessing for the inner palace, I said sincerely. Duaning smiled. By the way, I heard Chunji has been going to the Hall of Diligent Governance often lately. Yes, the emperor is personally teaching him about state affairs. That is a good thing. Duaning nodded. Chunji is intelligent and kind-hearted. He'll surely achieve great things in the future. Rest assured, I'll do everything I can to protect him. My eyes grew warm. This concubine. Thanks, sister, for your kindness. The 15th of the first month, the Lantern Festival. I had just returned from paying respects at the Empress Dowager's palace when Yan Shuang came to report. Your Highness, Beauty Wan has arrived, and she brought quite a lot of gifts. I furrowed my brows slightly. Ever since that incident, Yanshu's visits to Jiahua Palace had noticeably increased, each time with various excuses, either asking for guidance on poetry and books or presenting embroidery patterns. Today, being the Lantern Festival, she even prepared generous gifts. Show her to the warm chamber. I took off my cloak and changed into a plain everyday dress. This concubine greets noble consort Xian. Yan Shu curtsied in greeting, her smile radiant as the warm spring sun. On this Lantern Festival, I've come specially to pay my respects to your ladyship. Lady Wan is too kind. I gestured for her to sit. It is such a big holiday. Why aren't you preparing a banquet in your own palace? Yan Shu had a maid present a brocade box. This concubine personally made some tangyuan, thinking your ladyship might enjoy them. She opened the box, revealing 6 crystal, clear translucent tangyuan. This is the Jiangnan style. Thin skin, generous filling, made with lotus root starch, so it is not cloying. I was somewhat surprised. In my previous life, I had also eaten this kind of tangyuan. Yan Shu had specially made them for the emperor to try. I never expected that in this life, she would send them to me first. Lady Wan has gone to such trouble. I had Yan Shuang accept them. Changye will surely love them. How has the first prince been lately? Yan Shu asked with concern. I heard the emperor often summons him to the Hall of Diligent Governance. I picked up my teacup, taking the opportunity to observe her expression. He is doing fine, just some introductory lessons. Yan Shu nodded gently. The first prince is exceptionally clever. He will surely become someone great in the future. She paused briefly, then suddenly lowered her voice. Your ladyship, this concubine has actually come today with a request. Finally getting to the main point, I set down my teacup. Please, speak freely. This concubine has been in the palace for nearly a year. Though blessed with His Majesty's favor, within the inner palace, I still feel as if treading on thin ice. Yan Shu looked directly into my eyes. I wish to ask your ladyship for protection. I raised an eyebrow. Beauty Wan is currently basking in His Majesty's favor. Why would you need my protection? Imperial favor is like flowing water. Here today, gone tomorrow. Yan Shu smiled bitterly. I know all too well that without a solid foundation, no amount of favor is anything but a castle in the air. She took a deep breath. Your Highness has the Empress Dowager's trust and the first prince by your side. If I could receive your Highness's guidance, I would be eternally grateful. I didn't answer immediately. In my past life, Yanshu had relied on her own wit to establish herself in the inner palace, never bowing her head to anyone. Yet in this life, she was actively seeking my protection. "What do you want?" I asked directly. "An ally." Yanshu was equally direct. "In this inner palace, I need someone I can trust, and Your Highness needs someone who can speak on your behalf before the Emperor. We each get what we need." I watched her silently for a moment, then suddenly smiled. "Beauty Wan is indeed clever. But what makes you think I need you?" "Because of the first prince." Yanshu didn't hesitate. "Your Highness lives in seclusion, avoiding conflict with others, but the first prince is growing up day by day and will inevitably be drawn into the succession struggle. I may be unworthy, but before the Emperor, I can still put in a few words." My heart jolted. She saw through things so clearly. Indeed, I could not care about favor, not care about status, but Chungi's future. I had no choice but to care. "You've got quite the nerve," I said coldly. "How dare you recklessly discuss matters of succession?" Yanshu remained unhurried. "This concubine wouldn't dare. It is just preparing for a rainy day, that is all." She took out a small booklet from her sleeve. "This is some information this concubine compiled about succession matters from the previous dynasty. Perhaps it will be useful to your ladyship." I took the booklet and casually flipped through a few pages, secretly alarmed. It contained detailed records of how the princes of the previous dynasty competed for the throne, and how the current emperor ultimately prevailed. The thoroughness of the information and the depth of the analysis were certainly not something that could be completed overnight. "How long have you been preparing this?" Yanshu smiled. "Since the day I entered the palace. This concubine is used to understanding the rules before placing bets." I closed the booklet and gave her a long look. "What do you want in return?" "Your ladyship's trust and a helping hand at critical moments," Yanshu said sincerely. "This concubine asks for nothing else." The warm chamber fell silent for a moment. The fire crackled, and faint sounds of palace servants preparing for the lantern festival drifted in from outside the window. "All right." "In the end," I nodded. "But let me make this clear first. I will not do anything that goes against conscience and reason." A flash of joy passed through Yanshu's eyes. "Rest assured, your ladyship. This concubine feels the same." Just like that, we reached a subtle agreement. No oaths, no contracts, only an exchange of interests that we both understood in our hearts. Early February. The spring chill was still biting. That day, Chungji returned from the Hall of Diligent Governance, uncharacteristically quiet and withdrawn. At dinner, he only picked at a few bites of rice before putting down his chopsticks, saying he was full. "What is wrong?" I touched his forehead. "Are you feeling unwell?" Chunji shook his head, hesitated for a moment, then suddenly asked, "Mother, why can't I become the crown prince?" The chopsticks in my hand nearly fell. "Who told you this?" Today I was reading in the side hall of the Hall of Diligent Governance, and overheard the Grand Tutor speaking with Father. Chunji said in a low voice, "They said the crown prince should be established soon to stabilize the kingdom. They also said that although I am the eldest son, but what?" I suppressed the turmoil in my heart. "But my birth mother's background isn't good enough." Chungi looked at me. "Mother, what does this mean? Why does whether I can become crown prince have anything to do with you?" A sharp pain pierced my chest. In my previous life, Changje died young and never experienced these cruel palace realities. But now, how was I supposed to explain to an 11-year-old child that his fate was closely tied to his mother's origins? "Changji," he pulled him to sit by the window. "Do you know about bees?" "Yes. The Grand Tutor mentioned it. Bees have a queen bee, worker bees, and drones." "Right." I explained softly. "A queen bee is born a queen bee, not because she is smarter or braver than other bees, but simply because she was born that way. The human world is sometimes like this too. Some people, because of their birth, are destined to bear greater responsibilities. Chenji seemed to half understand. So, because Mother Consort isn't the Empress, I can't become the Crown Prince? Not necessarily, I stroked his hair. Throughout history, many wise rulers had birth mothers who weren't empresses. What is important is, I cupped his little face. No matter what the future holds, you must be an upright and kind person. Remember that? Chenji nodded, then asked, Then, does Imperial Father like third brother more? My heart tightened. The third prince, the one who ultimately ascended to the throne in my previous life, is only 10 years old now. Has he already been regarded as a candidate for crown prince by the court officials? Imperial Father loves every child the same. I forced a smile. All right, these matters aren't for you to worry about. You have lessons tomorrow. Get some rest early. After coaxing Chunyi to sleep, I stood alone in the courtyard, gazing at the sky full of stars, my mind unable to settle. In my previous life, I resorted to every means to vie for the Emperor's favor and a noble position, ultimately harming both others and myself. In this life, I had intended to stay out of it all and keep Chunji away from these disputes. But now it seems, the tree may wish to stand still, but the wind will never cease. By late February, the weather was gradually warming. That day when I went to Funing Palace to pay my respects, the Empress Dowager brought up, The Emperor recently asked about your relationship with Beauty Wan. The teacup in my hand paused. The Emperor, what did he say? He said you've always kept to yourself. Yet, lately you've grown quite close to Beauty Wan, and asked if I knew the reason. The Empress Dowager looked at me meaningfully. I set down the teacup. This consort and Beauty Wan merely discuss poetry and books occasionally. We have no deep friendship. Those words might fool others, but they won't fool the Emperor. The Empress Dowager shook her head. He is suspicious by nature. You have the first prince, and now you are getting close to a favored consort. How could he not be suspicious? I was secretly alarmed. Indeed, with the Emperor's temperament, he would certainly suspect I had ulterior motives in getting close to Yan Shu. This consort was negligent, I said softly. Please guide me, Your Majesty. What the Emperor hates most is the inner palace colluding with the court. The Empress Dowager said slowly. If he thinks you are befriending Beauty Wan for Chengyi's future. A chill ran down my spine. That was exactly the true purpose of my alliance with Yan Shu. This consort understands, I said solemnly. I will act carefully. In early April, explosive news spread throughout the inner palace. Consort Li's father, Pei Zhenyu, had won a great victory in the northwest, annihilating 30,000 enemy troops and capturing the enemy chieftain. This meant Consort Li's backing was even more solid, and it also meant she would regain power. My lady, I heard His Majesty is greatly pleased and wants to elevate Consort Li's rank. Yan Shuang said worriedly. I was trimming an orchid, my expression calm, as expected. But Consort Li has always seen you as a thorn in her side. It doesn't matter. I set down the scissors. Go invite Beauty Wan. When Yan Shu arrived, her expression was also unpleasant. Has Your Highness heard? General Pi has achieved a great merit. I poured her a cup of tea. What are you planning to do? Yan Shu pondered for a moment. The Pei family is too powerful. It is not wise to confront them directly for now. I plan to lay low for the time being. Wise, I nodded. After Consort Li regains favor, the first person she'll target will surely be you. In the coming days, try to go out less and carefully check all your food and clothing. Yan Shu looked at me gratefully. Thank you for the reminder, Your Highness. She hesitated for a moment. There is one more thing. I haven't told His Majesty yet. What is it? I might be with child. The teacup in my hand trembled. Are you certain? Not yet. My monthly cycle is half a month late, and I've been feeling nauseous lately. Yan Shu gently caressed her abdomen. I want to wait until it is confirmed before announcing. I thought for a moment, don't spread the word yet. If Consort Li finds out you are pregnant, she'll definitely become even more crazed. Yanshu nodded. I understand. I looked at her still, flat belly, my heart filled with indescribable complexity. In my previous life, Yanshu had also been pregnant. But in the end, if history repeats itself, should I intervene or just watch? Beauty Wan, I said solemnly. From today on, I will have people specially prepare your daily meals. Your clothes and personal items will also come from me first. A trace of emotion flashed in Yanshu's eyes. Your Highness. No need to say more. I interrupted her. Consider it, for the sake of our agreement. After seeing Yanshu off, I stood before the window in silence for a long time. Consort Li regaining favor, Yanshu's pregnancy, voices about establishing an heir gradually rising at court. This series of changes would completely alter the inner palace's power dynamics. And I, someone who after rebirth should have been watching coldly from the sidelines, had already become deeply entangled in it all. Yin Shuang, I instructed softly, go to the storeroom and retrieve that set of silver needles. Also, starting from today, all food and drink in Jiahua Palace must be carefully inspected. The 5th day of the 5th month, the Dragon Boat Festival. The palace held a banquet to celebrate. I originally didn't want Changyi to attend, but the emperor specifically decreed that all princes must be present. Before departing, I repeatedly reminded Changyi, remember, only eat the food brought from Jiahua Palace. Politely refuse anything offered by others. Your son remembers. Changyi nodded obediently. Mother has said it many times already. I straightened his collar for him, the unease in my heart growing ever stronger. At the banquet, Yanshu wore a loose palace gown. Her belly wasn't showing yet, but her complexion was rosy, with a soft maternal glow flickering in her eyes. Consort Li attended in full regalia, the pearls and jade adorning her hair glittering in the sunlight. She repeatedly toasted the emperor, her words brimming with smugness because of her father's military achievements. The emperor was especially lenient with her. Halfway through the banquet, a young palace maid accidentally spilled a cup of wine on Yanshu. When Yanshu rose to change clothes, I noticed Consort Li signal her personal maid with a look. Yanshu, I whispered my order. Follow and see. Don't alert anyone. Yanshu quietly slipped away from her seat. Before long, she hurried back and whispered in my ear. Your Highness, something's wrong. Someone lit musk incense in the side hall where Beauty Wan was changing. The chopsticks in my hand nearly snapped. Musk, in my previous life. Yanshu's first child was killed by musk. What about Beauty Wan? This servant warned her in time. She didn't enter that room, but Yanshu's voice dropped even lower. That palace maid accidentally let it slip. Now the entire banquet knows Beauty Wan is with child. My heart sank. The news of Yanshu's pregnancy was forcibly exposed, just like that, and right when Consort Li was at her proudest. Sure enough, when His Majesty heard the news, he was overjoyed, directly promoting Yanshu to Jiayuan with countless rewards. Consort Li forced a smile, but the malice in her eyes couldn't be hidden at all. After the banquet dispersed, I managed to avoid prying eyes and had a secret conversation with Yanshu behind the rockery in the Imperial Garden. What happened today was no coincidence. Yanshu's face was pale. There must be Consort Li's spy by my side. Your personal maid Fuling, I pointed out directly. She is Consort Li's person. Yanshu looked at me in shock. How did your Highness find out? Intuition. I brushed it off lightly. The priority now is to clean out the people around you. From today on, all your food and clothing will be personally arranged by me. Yanshu gratefully held my hand. Your Highness's great kindness, this concubine will never forget. No need for thanks. I patted her hand. Remember, from now on, you are sick. except for paying daily respects to the Empress. Claim illness and don't go out at all other times. As for the Emperor, figure that out yourself. Yanshu nodded understandingly. This concubine understands. After returning to the palace, I immediately ordered someone to prepare a set of silver needles and several antidote herbs, planning to send them to Yanshu tomorrow. Yan Shuang hesitated to speak beside me. Just say what you want to say, I said without looking up. Your Highness. Yan Shuang said hesitantly, why do you care so much about noble consort Wan? Even if it is for the first prince, you don't have to. Yan Shuang, I interrupted her. Some things don't need a reason. Just like how I didn't need a reason to harm people in my past life. In this life, I want to save people, and I don't need a reason either. On the 7th of the 5th month, the nightmare descended. I was writing when Yan Qiu rushed in frantically. Your Highness, the first prince collapsed in the imperial study. My vision went black. Chengyi died young in my past life. Could it be that even after living again, I still can't change this ending? Summon the imperial physician. My voice was hoarse. Go report to the Hall of Diligent Governance. When I rushed to the imperial study, Chengyi had already been moved to the side hall, lying on the couch with a deathly pale face and bluish lips. Grand Tutor Zhang was pacing anxiously beside him. What happened? I rushed to the couch, grasping Chengyi's cold little hand. Reporting to noble consort Xian, Grand Tutor Zhang's voice trembled. The first prince was perfectly fine just now, then suddenly said he felt dizzy. And then he collapsed. I felt for Chengyi's pulse, weak and feeble, coming and going. This was clearly a sign of poisoning. What did he eat today? He only drank the tea provided by the study. I grabbed the teacup on the table and sniffed it closely, a faint bitter almond scent. That is it. It was arsenic. This was the same poison consort Li used to kill concubine Liu in my past life. Quickly go boil mung bean and licorice soup, I shouted at Yanqiu, and bring me the white jade bottle from the bottom of my jewelry box. By the time the imperial physician arrived, I had already fed Chengjai my homemade antidote pill. This was something I had secretly prepared after my rebirth, precisely to guard against a day like this. Your ladyship, it is arsenic, I said directly. The dosage wasn't large, but Chengjai is young and can't withstand it. Hurry and administer acupuncture. The imperial physician was surprised by my judgment, but given the urgency, immediately began the acupuncture treatment. By the time the emperor rushed over upon hearing the news, Chengjai had just vomited a mouthful of black blood, and his breathing was gradually stabilizing. What happened? The imperial physician knelt down. Reporting to your majesty, the first prince was poisoned. Thanks to noble consort Xian's timely discovery and use of the right medicine, his life was saved. The emperor's gaze turned to me, a flash of surprise in his eyes. I had no time to explain, just tightly held Chengyi's hand, terrified he would disappear, the moment I let go. Investigate, the emperor said sternly. Investigate thoroughly for me. After Chengjai was out of danger, I had Yanqiu and Yanshuang guard him without leaving his side, then headed straight for Zhangyun Palace. Consort Li was admiring flowers. Seeing me barge in, she feigned surprise. Oh my, how does elder sister consort Xian have the time? You are the one who poisoned him. I cut her off directly, my voice cold as ice. Consort Li's smile remained unchanged. Where did this come from, sister? This consort is also deeply pained by the first prince's poisoning. A young eunuch from Zhangyun Palace added arsenic to the tea. I stepped forward. Consort Li, do you dare to own up to what you've done? Consort Li narrowed her eyes and waved for all the palace servants to withdraw. When only the two of us remained in the hall, the fake smile on her face vanished instantly. So what if this consort did it? Do you have proof? I clenched my fists tight, nails digging deep into my palms. In my past life, I would have retaliated without hesitation, using even more vicious means. But now, looking at Consort Li's smug face, I suddenly calmed down. No proof. I said calmly, "But I am warning you, Consort Li. If anything happens to Chenji again, I guarantee the Pei family will be buried alongside you." Consort Li laughed loudly. "You think you can? My father is a key minister of the court with illustrious military achievements. Even the emperor has to show him some respect. What do you think you are?" "Your father's achievements overshadow the sovereign," I said softly. "Tell me, does the emperor truly hold no resentment in his heart?" Consort Li's expression shifted slightly. "You dare sow discord?" "I don't need to sow discord." I turned and walked toward the palace doors. Just wait and see how long the Pei family can remain in glory. Walking out of Jiangyun Palace, my legs went weak, and I had to lean against the palace wall to stay standing. Anger and lingering fear surged like tides, nearly drowning me. So close. I almost lost Chengji again. "Your ladyship." Yanshu hurried over. "The first prince is awake and crying to see you." I took a deep breath, barely steadying my emotions. Back to the palace. Inside the Hall of Diligent Governance, the atmosphere was heavy as iron. The emperor sat high upon the dragon throne, his expression so dark it could drip water. I knelt below, listening to Li Dequan report the investigation results. Arsenic was indeed detected in the tea. Upon investigation, the young eunuch responsible for serving tea that day was only transferred to the imperial study 2 months ago, and he is from the same hometown as the head eunuch of Jiangyuan Palace. "What else?" the emperor asked coldly. "That young eunuch threw himself into a well last night." The emperor slammed the table and rose abruptly. "How convenient, dead men tell no tales." I knelt quietly, sneering inwardly. Consort Li's work was indeed clean and efficient. The trail cut off at just the right moment. "Shan Fei," the emperor suddenly asked me, "how did you recognize it was arsenic at a glance?" I was well prepared. When I was young, I once saw a servant in my household accidentally consume arsenic. The symptoms were similar to Chengji's. Over these years with nothing to do, I read some medical books, so I recognized it. The emperor stared at me for a long time, as if judging whether it was true or false. Finally, he nodded. "This time, it was all thanks to you." He turned to Li Dequan. "Consort Li failed to discipline her subordinates, causing the prince to be harmed. Her allowance is revoked for half a year, and she is confined for 3 months." That is it. My heart turned ice cold. My son nearly lost his life, yet the culprit only received such a flimsy punishment. "Your Majesty." I couldn't help but look up Chunye. I know, the emperor cut me off, but her father just rendered great service, and the court needs people right now. I lowered my eyes and said nothing more. Yes, in an emperor's heart, how could a son's life compare to the stability of his empire? My past life self couldn't see through this, but in this life, I see it all too clearly. "Xianfei," the emperor's voice softened, "I will assign more people to protect Chengji. Also, you have merit in the treatment, so you are promoted to Gifei." "Gifei?" I almost laughed out loud, using rank to compensate for the pain of nearly losing a son. This is what an emperor calls favor. "Your subject. Thanks, Your Majesty, for this grace." I kowtowed mechanically, my heart no longer stirred by any ripples. The decree of my promotion to imperial consort spread throughout the inner palace, yet I felt no joy whatsoever. Although Chengde was out of danger, his body was weak and required long-term recuperation. I stayed by his bedside day and night, personally brewing medicine and feeding him, terrified that anything might go wrong again. "Royal Mother, your son is fine now." Chengi smiled weakly. "Please, don't cry." Only then did I realize my tears had dripped onto his face. I hurriedly wiped them away. "Royal Mother isn't crying, it is just something got in my eyes." On the 5th day, Duaning suddenly came to Zhaowa Palace in person. Little sister. She looked at my haggard face, her eyes full of heartache. You've had a hard time these past few days. I forced a smile. Thank you for your concern, elder sister. Chengi is much better now. Duaning dismissed her attendants, personally checked on Chunjae's condition, then pulled me to the outer room. This palace knows who administered the poison. I looked up abruptly. Does elder sister have evidence? Number Duaning smiled bitterly. But this palace isn't foolish. Consort Li has always seen Chunjae as a thorn in her side. And now that Zhao Yuan is pregnant, she has become even more anxious. I remained silent. Duaning continued. This palace has already ordered that from now on, all princes' meals will be handled by dedicated personnel, and every dish must be tested for poison. Also, she lowered her voice. This palace has also assigned extra people to Zhao Yuan's side. I looked at her in surprise. In my previous life, Duaning was indecisive and never dared to confront Consort Li directly. Yet, in this life, she was so decisive. Why would sister? Because I am the Empress. A flash of determination crossed Duaning's eyes. Protecting the imperial heir is my duty. Besides, she held my hand. I also watched Chengji grow up. My heart warmed, and I nearly shed tears. In our previous lives, we fought to the death. Yet in this life, we stand together for a common goal. Fate is truly wondrous. Thank you, sister, I said sincerely. Duaning shook her head. No need for thanks. I have already petitioned for Chengji to move to the side hall of Fengyi Palace for a while after he recovers. It is close to the Hall of Diligent Governance, so His Majesty can visit him often, and it is safer. I understood her intention. Fengyi Palace is the Empress's residence. No matter how arrogant Consort Li is, she wouldn't dare make any moves there. This concubine doesn't know how to thank sister. Take good care of Chengji, Duaning said gently. He is a good child in the future. He will surely achieve great things. There was a hidden meaning in her words, and I understood clearly. In early June, Chengji's health gradually improved, and he moved to the side hall of Fengyi Palace. When Yanshu secretly came to visit, I was tidying up Chengji's clothes. Your ladyship, after paying her respects, she asked with concern, has the first prince fully recovered? Much better. I gestured for her to sit down. Thanks to the Empress's care. Yanshu nodded. The Empress has been taking extra care of this concubine recently. She gently stroked her belly. If this child can be born safely, I will never forget the great kindness of the Empress and your ladyship. I looked at her still. Flat belly, my heart filled with mixed emotions. In my previous life, Yanshu's first child couldn't be saved. In this life, can I change that outcome? Consort Li won't let this go easily. I said bluntly. You are carrying a child now. You need to be even more careful. This concubine understands. A hint of determination flashed in Yanshu's eyes. This time, with the first prince being poisoned, this concubine has seen Consort Li's viciousness even more clearly. Your ladyship can rest assured, this concubine will never make the same mistakes again. I thought for a moment, then took out a small box from the cabinet. Here are some pregnancy, stabilizing pills made by my own hands. Take one every 3 days to strengthen the fetal energy and resist common poisons. Yanshu received it solemnly. Your ladyship is even so proficient in medicine? Just know a little bit, I said casually. Remember, don't eat anything sent by anyone except the Empress and me. This concubine will remember. After seeing Yanshu off, I stood by the window in silence for a long time. At the beginning of my rebirth, I only wanted to stay away from conflicts and keep Chengji safe, but now I've unknowingly become deeply involved, forming an alliance with Yanshu and Duaning to fight against Consort Li together. Fate is truly wondrous. Enemies from my past life have become allies in this one, and former obsessions have transformed into today's protection. Perhaps this is the meaning of rebirth. Not just changing the ending, but changing oneself. In early July, a memorial from the northwest shook the entire court. Pei Zhenyu actually dared to use diligent from dawn to dusk to describe his own achievements. The Empress Dowager slammed her teacup heavily onto the table, sneering repeatedly. He is comparing himself to Zhuge Liang. I sat quietly at the lower seat, gently massaging the Empress Dowager's shoulders. This scene had also happened in my past life. Pei Zhenyu's arrogant memorial boasting of his merits marked the beginning of the Pei family's downfall. What was the emperor's reaction? His Majesty was furious and tore up the memorial right in court. Aunt Suihei said in a low voice, "He has already issued an edict reprimanding Pei Zhenyu and summoning him back to the capital to report on his duties." The Empress Dowager gave me a meaningful look. "Nian Qing, what do you think?" My hands didn't stop moving. This humble consort is foolish and doesn't understand court politics. It is just, those whose achievements overshadow the sovereign rarely meet good ends since ancient times. The Empress Dowager nodded with satisfaction. "You see things quite clearly." She patted my hand. "How has Consort Li been lately?" "She has been much more behaved since being confined to her quarters." I answered honestly, However what? This humble consort heard that she secretly sent someone to deliver a letter to the northwest. A sharp glint flashed in the Empress Dowager's eyes. "Is the information reliable?" "It was Jia Yuan who told this humble consort," I said softly. "There are Consort Li's spies in her palace, and she has also planted people in Zhangyun Palace in return." The Empress Dowager chuckled lightly. "This Consort Wan is quite a capable one." She pondered for a moment. "Have her keep watching. Report any movement to me immediately. This consort understands." When leaving Funing Palace, I saw from afar Li Dequan leading several young eunuchs hurrying toward the Hall of Diligent Governance, holding a stack of memorials. Judging by the thickness, there must be quite a few impeachment memorials against Pei Zhenyu from today's court session. Upon returning to Zhaohua Hall, Chengyi was reviewing his books. Since the poisoning incident, he had lost quite a bit of weight, but his gaze had become more resolute. "Mother consort." He put down his book and came to greet me. "Is Imperial Grandmother in good health?" "The Empress Dowager is well. She even asked about you." I patted his head. "How are your studies?" Grand Tutor Zhang said, "I've made great progress." Chenji's eyes sparkled. "Father Emperor came to the Imperial study today and praised my essay." My heart warmed. "By the way," Chenji suddenly lowered his voice, "I overheard Father Emperor talking with Minister Zhang. It seems they're going to deal with General P." My heart skipped a beat. "What else did you hear?" "They said General P is domineering and doesn't take Father Emperor seriously." Chenji asked in confusion. "Mother consort, hasn't General P achieved many military merits? Why is Father Emperor unhappy?" I pondered for a moment and said softly, "Chenji, remember what Mother consort tells you. As a subject, no matter how great your achievements, you are still a subject if you forget your place. That is the path to disaster." Chenji nodded obediently. In mid-July, Yanshu suddenly paid a secret visit. "Your Highness," her face was pale. "Something has happened." I dismissed the attendants. "Take your time." The day before yesterday, Imperial Physician Zhou took my pulse and said I might be carrying twins. Yanshu's voice trembled. "In the Imperial family, this is seen as an ill omen if word gets out." My heart jolted. In my previous life, Yanshu's first child was miscarried due to musk, so she never faced this predicament. Twins were indeed considered inauspicious in the Imperial family. At best, one would fall out of favor. At worst, I dared not think further. Can Imperial Physician Zhou be trusted? He is my confidant. He has kept it secret for now. Yanshu bit her lip. But once I am further along, it won't be possible to hide. I pondered for a moment. There are two options. One is to use medicine to let one fetus wither naturally, keeping one healthy child. 2 is to find a way to deceive everyone and make arrangements when it is time for delivery. Tears welled up in Yanshu's eyes. I can't bear to give up either one. I understood how she felt. In my previous life, though I never truly loved the Emperor, my maternal love for Changji was real. A mother's feelings for her unborn child, I understood that better than anyone. Then we'll take the second path, I said decisively. From today on, you'll wear loose clothing. I'll prepare some medicinal meals to control the size of the fetuses, so your belly won't look as big as one carrying twins. Yanshu gratefully grasped my hand. Your Highness's great kindness. Don't rush to thank me yet, I said seriously. This path carries great risk. If discovered, it would be the crime of deceiving the Emperor. This concubine understands, Yanshu said firmly. For the sake of the children, this concubine is willing to take the risk. I nodded. Also, reliable people must be arranged for the delivery. I will be there personally. Your Highness. Yanshu looked at me in shock. This is too dangerous. If something goes wrong, you'll be implicated too. I chuckled lightly. Don't worry, I have experience. Though I never gave birth to twins in my previous life, I've seen plenty of difficult deliveries. Now, let me take your pulse. Yanshu obediently extended her wrist. I examined her carefully and found her pulse slippery and strong. Indeed, the sign of twins, but her qi and blood were slightly weak. You need to nourish your qi and blood, but not too much, lest the fetuses grow too large. Remember, apart from Imperial Physician Zhou and me, don't let a third person know the truth. Don't tell even the Emperor or the Empress. Yanshu bowed deeply. This concubine will remember. At the end of July, the Emperor suddenly arrived at Zhaohua Palace. Blessings to your Majesty. I curtsied in surprise. Since being promoted to noble consort, the Emperor had actually visited less often, probably feeling he had rewarded me enough. Rise. The Emperor seemed to be in a good mood. Where is Changji? He is studying in the Imperial study, I answered. Shall I summon him back? His Majesty waved his hand. No need. I came to find you. He sat down, accepting the tea offered by a palace maid. I've read Changji's essays recently, quite insightful, especially his proposals on governing the Yellow River. Even the Grand Tutor praised them. Your Majesty flatters him, I said modestly. Changji is merely theorizing on paper. No, he has talent. His Majesty's eyes gleamed with an unusual light. I intend to let him start handling some simple state affairs. My heart trembled. In my previous life, Changji naturally never had this opportunity. But now, His Majesty is actually proposing to let Changji participate in court affairs. Is this a blessing or a curse? Your Majesty, Changji is only 11. His Majesty was dismissive. He is my eldest son. It is only right he shoulders great responsibilities early. I was silent for a moment, then said softly, This concubine only wishes for Changji to grow up safely. His Majesty frowned. Noble consort, you've always been perceptive. Why are you so muddled about this? If Changji remains just an idle prince, when a new emperor ascends the throne in the future, how will he survive? My heart jolted. His Majesty's words were clearly implying. He had considered the possibility of making Changji the crown prince. This concubine is just worried he is too young to bear all this. With me here, what are you afraid of? His Majesty rarely softened his voice. I will personally teach him. You just need to be a good mother to him. I lowered my head in agreement, yet my heart was filled with mixed emotions. If Changji truly gets caught up in the succession struggle, his future path will surely be full of danger. But if I only shield him, I fear he'll lose the ability to protect himself. After the Emperor left, I immediately sent someone to summon Changji back. Mother, Changji ran in excitedly. I wrote a poem today, and Father praised it several times. I pulled him to sit down. Changji, Mother has something to ask you. If father wants you to start learning how to handle state affairs, would you be willing? Chunjai's eyes lit up. Really? I am willing. Do you know what this means? I asked seriously. It will be very hard, and also very dangerous. I know. Chenji was surprisingly mature, the Grand Tutor once said. When heaven is about to bestow a great responsibility upon a person, it must first test their will. I am not afraid of hardship. He hesitated for a moment. Is mother worried about something like last time? My heart ached, and I held him in my arms. Mother just wants you to be safe and happy. I understand. Chenji leaned against my embrace. But I also want to become someone like father, serving the country and the people, accomplishing great things. Looking at his determined eyes, I suddenly realized my child has grown up, no longer the little one who needed my protection everywhere, but a young man with his own ambitions. All right. I gently kissed his forehead. Since you've decided, mother supports you. But promise, mother, no matter what difficulties you encounter, you'll tell mother, okay? Chunji nodded vigorously. Your son promises you, Imperial Mother. In early August, Pei Zhenyu was summoned back to the capital. When the news came, I was playing chess with the Empress Dowager. Pei Zhenyu knelt outside Chanyuan Gate for a whole shikan yesterday, yet the emperor simply refused to see him. The Empress Dowager placed a piece and said nonchalantly, I feigned surprise. His Majesty is this angry? More than that, the Empress Dowager sneered coldly. Someone has already impeached Pei Zhenyu for embezzling military funds and forming cliques for personal gain. The Emperor has ordered Prince Rui to investigate thoroughly. My heart skipped a beat. In my previous life, the downfall of the Pei family started with these very charges. Does Consort Li know? Of course she does. The Empress Dowager said meaningfully, I heard Zhongyun Palace has been replacing porcelain quite frequently these past few days. I remained silent. No matter how arrogant Consort Li was, she merely relied on the Pei family's power. If the Pei family fell, her end wouldn't be far off. Nianqing. The Empress Dowager suddenly asked, if Consort Li loses her power, who do you think is most suitable to take over the affairs of the 6 palaces? The chess piece in my hand paused. Naturally, it would be Her Majesty, the Empress. Duaning's temperament is too soft. The Empress Dowager shook her head. If you hadn't been supporting her from behind all these years, she would have long been crushed by Consort Li until she couldn't breathe. My heart trembled. Was the Empress Dowager hinting for me to take over the power of the 6 palaces? This concubine is of limited talent and learning. Enough. The Empress Dowager interrupted me. I know your ambitions don't lie here. However, she looked at me meaningfully. Some responsibilities are not ones you can escape just because you want to. When I left Funing Palace, my mind was filled with countless thoughts. The Empress Dowager was right. As Chunjie received more and more attention, it was already impossible for me to stay completely uninvolved. Since I couldn't avoid it, I might as well take the initiative myself. On my way back to the palace, I happened to run into Yan Shu, who had just come out of Qinzhang Hall. This concubine greets noble consort. She performed the ritual greeting as customary, yet an unusual gleam flickered in her eyes. J.U. Wan need not be so formal. I feigned indifference. Is His Majesty well? His Majesty just finished reviewing memorials and has retired to rest. Yanshu lowered her voice. Your ladyship. Big news. His Majesty just issued a decree, stripping Pei Zhenyu of his position as Grand General and demoting him to General of Zhongying. My heart skipped a beat. This came faster than in my previous life. It seemed the Emperor's patience with Pei Zhenyu had reached its limit. Does Consort Li know? She probably doesn't yet. A hint of cunning flashed in Yanshu's eyes. This concubine has already arranged people. When Consort Li finds out, there will be quite a show. I gave her a warning look. Don't go too far. This concubine understands. Yanshu replied obediently, but the gleam in her eyes told me she already had a plan. The 15th of the 8th month, the Mid-Autumn Festival, the palace held a banquet in celebration, but Consort Li claimed illness and didn't attend. Ever since news of Pei Zhenyu's demotion arrived, she had shut herself in and Jiangyun Palace was shrouded in gloom. At the banquet, Empress Duaning looked radiant, presiding over the event with ease. Yanshu didn't attend due to her unstable pregnancy, which actually relieved me of some worry. After the banquet ended, Duaning specifically asked me to stay. "Sister, accompany me for a walk." Moonlight like water spilled onto the pebble path of the imperial garden. Duaning dismissed her attendants and walked alongside me. "Nianqing." She suddenly called me by my name directly. "Thank you for all these years." I looked at her in surprise. Why would sister say such things? I know that if you hadn't been maneuvering behind the scenes, I would have lost my position as empress long ago. Duaning gazed up at the bright moon. In the past, I devoted myself entirely to His Majesty, blind to the dangers of this harem, until what? Until I saw you. Duaning turned to me. "You never compete or fight, yet handle everything perfectly. You are indifferent to fame and fortune, yet no one dares bully you. Only then did I understand that a woman can live like this, not wholly dependent on a man, yet still living splendidly." In her previous life, Duaning lived and died consumed by love. But in this life, because of my influence, she found her own self-worth. "Sister flatters me too much," I said softly. "This consort is just accustomed to being lazy." Duaning laughed. "You always so modest." She said seriously, "I sought you out today because there is an important matter to discuss. The Pacey family is about to fall from power, and after Consort Li's downfall, the harem's power dynamics will surely change dramatically. I want to ask you to help manage the affairs of the 6 palaces." I looked at her in surprise. Assisting in managing the 6 palaces. This meant immense power, as well as immense responsibility. "This concubine is afraid. Don't be so quick to refuse." Duaning held my hand. "It is not for me, it is for Chengji. He is growing up day by day. If you have no power in your hands, how can you protect him?" I was silent for a moment. Duaning was right. In this deep palace, power is the best talisman. If I wanted to protect Chengyi, I couldn't hide behind others forever. This concubine obeys the decree. Duaning smiled with relief. "Wonderful. With you and me united as sisters, this rear palace will surely be at peace." Sisters united, once upon a time. We were sworn enemies, yet now we had become true sisters. Fate is truly wondrous. On the way back to the palace, I looked up at the sky full of stars, my heart more peaceful than ever before. The grudges, grievances, loves, and hatreds of my past life seemed to have all drifted away with the wind. In this life, I had finally found where I belonged. Not an empress fighting for power and profit, not a concubine hiding away in silent endurance, but a mother consort with the strength to protect those I love, a friend, a sister. Chengji's future, Yanshu's child, Duaning's trust. These had all become the new meaning of my life. As for His Majesty, he had long ceased to matter in my heart. In early September, the news of Pei Zhenyu being dismissed and investigated struck the court like a thunderbolt. That day, I was teaching Chengji to identify medicinal herbs when Yankyu rushed over in a hurry. "Your Highness, something terrible has happened. General Pei has been escorted back to the capital and thrown into the Ministry of Justice's prison." The herb grinder in my hand paused slightly, faster and more ruthless than in my previous life. "Any movements from Jiangyun Palace?" Consort Li has been making a fuss demanding to see His Majesty, but Li Dequan blocked her outside the Hall of Diligent Governance. Yanshu lowered her voice. "I heard after she returned to her palace, she smashed quite a few things, and even beat several maids to vent her anger. I let out a soft sigh, feeling a trace of sorrow. No matter how arrogant Consort Li was, she was merely a prisoner in this deep palace, living off the power of her father and brother. Imperial Mother, Consort Li Shi. Chunji looked up at me with his small face. I stroked his head. She lost something important. Remember, Chunji, in this life, one cannot place all their hopes on external things. Whether it is power, wealth, or others' favor, all can vanish in an instant. Only the strength within oneself is the true support. Chunji nodded earnestly. He might not fully understand the lessons of blood and tears behind these words now, but one day he will. Your Highness! Yanshuang suddenly rushed in, panicked. Something happened at Shuyu Chambers. Consort Wan suddenly has unbearable stomach pains, and Imperial Physician Zhou says it is poisoning. The herb grinder in my hand fell to the ground with a clang. It has come at last. Consort Li's counterattack in her desperate situation. Prepare the sedan chair, he said harshly. Changye, stay in the palace. Don't go anywhere. Shu Yusai was in chaos. Yan Shu lay on the bed with a deathly pale face, cold sweat covering her forehead, her hands clutching the bedding tightly. Imperial Physician Zhou was administering acupuncture, his expression terrifyingly grave. What happened? It is oleander powder. Imperial Physician Zhou's voice trembled. It was mixed into Consort Wan's pregnancy, stabilizing medicine. Fortunately, it was discovered in time otherwise. I immediately grabbed Yan Shu's wrist to take her pulse. The pulse was slippery and scattered. Indeed, signs of poisoning, but not yet life. Threatening, the heartbeats of the two fetuses in her belly were still fairly strong. Go to my palace and get the antidote powder, I shouted at Yanshuang. And the silver needle pouch, hurry. Yanshuang dashed off. I turned to Imperial Physician Zhou. Did you induce vomiting? Already done. Not enough. I directly checked Yanshu's pupils myself. Oleander toxin enters the heart meridian. We must protect the heart vessels immediately. I took out a small bottle from the pouch at my waist, poured out 2 pills. These are my own formulation, containing rhinoceros horn, musk, and bazaar. Imperial Physician Zhou widened his eyes, but musk could harm the fetus. A small amount won't hurt. Saving her life is what matters. Shortly after the medicine went down, Yanshu's breathing gradually stabilized, but she remained unconscious. The child. Save it, she murmured unconsciously. I held her hand. Don't be afraid. Both you and the child will be fine. Yanshuang brought silver needles and antidote powder, and I personally administered acupuncture to Yanshu. In my past life, I had studied all kinds of poisons and their remedies to compete for favor. I never thought I'd use it to save someone in this life. 2 hours later, Yanshu was finally out of danger. Imperial Physician Zhou wiped the sweat from his forehead. All thanks to noble consort's miraculous healing skills. Who poisoned her? I asked coldly. It was Yung Xiang, the one serving Consort Li. A young palace maid knelt down and sobbed. She impersonated someone from the Imperial Household Department to deliver pregnancy, stabilizing medicine. A cold glint flashed in my eyes. Just as I expected, Consort Li had become so desperate that she actually dared to harm the Imperial heir. Take good care of your mistress. I stood up. Notify me immediately if anything seems off. Leaving Shuyu Pavilion, I headed straight for Zhongyun Palace. It was time to settle this once and for all. The gates of Zhongyun Palace were tightly shut, but they couldn't block the sounds of shattering and wailing from inside. I signaled the guards not to announce me and pushed the door open directly. The hall was in complete disarray. Consort Li stood among a pile of broken porcelain shards with disheveled hair, her once gorgeous face twisted hideously. Shen Nianqing. She turned and saw me, her eyes shooting a venomous glare. Come to watch me make a fool of myself? I don't have that kind of leisure, I said coldly. Consort Li, you ordered someone to poison Consort Wan. The evidence is irrefutable. Consort Li laughed loudly. Evidence. That lowly wretch is still alive. What a pity. She suddenly grabbed a vase and smashed it on the ground. The Pei family has fallen. What does this palace have left to fear? Don't you ever think about Pei Langson? The Pei family has fallen, but your niece is only 12 this year. Can you bear to drag her down with you? Consort Li trembled all over. How do you know about Langson? I know more than you imagine. I stepped forward. Stop now, His Majesty. Considering the Pei family's past merits, won't take your life. But if anything happens to Consort Wan or the imperial heir... Ahahaha. Consort Li suddenly burst into manic laughter. Shen Nianqing. Oh, Shen Nianqing, you've pretended to be aloof your whole life, and now you are finally showing your true colors. Is it worth it for that Yanshu? It is not for her, I said calmly. It is for the innocent child. Consort Li's laughter came to an abrupt halt. She stared at me fixedly, her eyes filled with complex, indiscernible emotions. Do you know? What this palace hates most is that look of yours. Always high and mighty, always untouched by dust. She staggered closer. You think you've won. Let me tell you, in this deep palace, there are no winners. Looking at her crazed eyes, I suddenly felt a wave of pity. Consort Li was the same in my past life, walking toward destruction and despair. I will look after Pei Langson, I said softly. At least, find her a good family. Consort Li froze, the madness in her eyes gradually turning into confusion, then deep exhaustion. She slowly slid down to the ground, like a woman who had suddenly aged. Why, she murmured, why is it you? I didn't answer and turned to leave. Behind me came Consort Li's heart, wrenching cries, echoing in this gilded cage, lingering for a long time. 3 days later, an imperial edict was issued. Consort Li of the Pei family had conspired to harm the imperial heir, stripped of her title and banished to the cold palace. Pei Zhenyu was sentenced to immediate execution. The entire Pi family's property confiscated and exiled. Only underage girls were pardoned. On the 10th day of the 10th month, Yan Shu went into labor. That day, the autumn sky was high and the air crisp. I arrived early at Shuyu Pavilion to take charge. How is the situation? Duaning nervously asked Imperial Physician Zhou. Reporting to Your Majesty, the Empress. Jeyuan's fetal position is normal. She should be able to deliver smoothly. Imperial Physician Zhou wiped his sweat. It is just what? I took over. It is just that Jeyuan is physically weak. The delivery might take a bit longer. Your Majesty need not worry. Duaning nodded and pulled me aside. Nianqing, if they really are twins. This concubine has already thought of a plan. I said in a low voice. Just say the second child is an auspicious sign bestowed by heaven, arrived because Her Majesty the Empress sincerely prayed. According to the rules, the child can be raised under the Empress's name. Duaning's eyes lit up. This idea is great. It solves the taboo issue, and also... Her words were cut off by Yanshu's cry of pain. The midwife shouted loudly, I can see the head push Jeyu Nyang. A full 4 shichen later, a loud baby's cry pierced the night sky. It is a little prince, the midwife announced with great joy. Everyone was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when Yanshu suddenly grabbed the bedsheet. There is another one. Imperial Physician Zhou's face changed drastically. Prepare quickly. The second one is coming. After another shiken of difficult struggle, the second child was finally born safely. A little princess, dragon and phoenix twins. The midwife exclaimed, What a tremendous auspicious omen. Duaning knelt down and kowtowed to thank the heavens. This is heaven and earth moved by His Majesty's benevolence, bestowing this auspicious sign upon our great Shah. When the news reached the Hall of Diligent Governance, the Emperor was overjoyed, and immediately issued a decree promoting Yanshu to consort Wan, bestowing 1,000 taels of gold. As for the taboo of twins, under the narrative of dragon and phoenix twins as an auspicious omen, no one brought it up again, looking at the exhausted but happy Yanshu, and the two healthy little lives beside her. A huge weight finally lifted from my heart. The tragedy of my past life had been completely rewritten in this one. Spring of the 10th year of Kangyuan, the Imperial Garden. I sat in the pavilion, watching the children playing not far away. 16-year. Old Chungi was teaching Consort Wan's 5-year-old twins to write, his expression serious, yet gentle. "What fine spirits you are in, little sister." Duaning approached gracefully and sat down beside me. "Elder sister." I rose to curtsy but was held back by her. So formal again. Duaning shook her head with a smile. "Look how happily the children are playing." I nodded. These 5 years, the harem had been surprisingly peaceful. Consort Li spent the rest of her days in the cold palace, and the other consorts all behaved themselves. Duaning managed the harem in perfect order, while Yanshu and I became her most capable assistants. "I heard His Majesty tested Chunjae on his studies yesterday, and praised him again?" Duaning asked. I smiled. "His Majesty has him learning to review memorials now." Duaning looked at me meaningfully. Talk of establishing an heir has risen again. My expression remained unchanged. "Chunji is still young, no rush. You, honestly." Duaning shook her head. "Anyone else would have been eager to push their son to the throne long ago, yet you are so indifferent." "It is not indifference. It is clarity. The power games I couldn't see through in my past life, I now understand completely in this one. The throne isn't necessarily a blessing, peace and safety are what truly matter." "Oh, right." Duaning suddenly lowered her voice. "Consort Wan is expecting again?" I nodded. 2 months along. Imperial physician Zhou says the pregnancy is very stable. How wonderful. A hint of envy flashed in Duaning's eyes, then she became at peace. I was not fortunate enough to have a child of my own, but now with Chengqing and Anning, these 2 children, I am content. Chengqing and Anning were the formal names of Yanshu's twins. Yanshu was grateful for the protection from me and the Empress, and voluntarily requested to raise Prince Chengqing under Duaning's name, giving the childless Duaning someone to rely on. As for the little Princess Anning, Yanshu raised her herself. Sister treats them as her own. It is their blessing, I said sincerely. Duaning patted my hand. "Between us, sisters. No need for such words." "Sisters. Yes, now we are truly sisters." The grudges from the previous life have long scattered with the wind. Imperial mother, noble little Anning came bouncing over, holding up a freshly picked flower. "For you," Duaning happily picked her up. "Anning is such a good girl." Watching this scene, my heart was filled with warmth. In the previous life, Anning was never born, but in this life she became everyone's little ray of sunshine. The change of fate was truly wonderful. In the autumn of the 15th year of Kangyuan, the emperor fell gravely ill. That day, I went to the Hall of Diligent Governance to pay my respects. The emperor was leaning on his couch, his complexion ashen, but his gaze still sharp. "The noble consort is here," he waved weakly. "Sit." I performed my courtesy and sat on the stool he indicated. "Your Majesty's complexion looks better than yesterday." "I know my own body well," the emperor coughed twice. "My days are numbered." I remained silent. In the previous life, the emperor also fell gravely ill around this time. But back then, I had been deposed to the cold palace and had no chance to see him. "Nianqing," he suddenly called my boudoir name. "I've always wanted to ask you a question. Please speak, Your Majesty. All these years, why have you never competed for favor?" The emperor looked directly into my eyes. "I've seen too many women use every trick for affection, yet you alone have always remained indifferent. Why?" I didn't expect him to ask this. After a moment's thought, I said softly, I believe an emperor's love is like flowers in a mirror or the moon in water. It cannot be forced. Better to stay true to oneself and live more freely. The emperor smiled bitterly and sighed. Changyi, I am very pleased with him. He is benevolent and wise. He'll surely be a great ruler. My heart trembled. Was this a clear hint that he intended to make Changyi the crown prince? Your Majesty, I know you don't want him caught up in the power struggles. The emperor cut me off. But the great Xia Empire needs a ruler like him. He struggled to sit up. Nianqing, promise me, if anything happens to me, you must guide Chang'e. Well, let him be a benevolent ruler. I solemnly knelt down. I will remember, Your Majesty. The emperor wearily closed his eyes. You may leave. Let Duaning and the children in. I bowed and withdrew, meeting Duaning, Yanshu, and the children waiting at the door. Chang'e was already 21, tall and elegant, his features bearing both the emperor's resoluteness and my gentleness. Mother, he looked at me worriedly. Father, I straightened his collar. Go on. Your father is waiting, watching their retreating figures as they entered the hall of diligent governance. I suddenly understood. In this life, I had finally obtained everything I had longed for but never received in my previous life. The children's safe upbringing, genuine friendship, and inner peace. As for those past grudges and entanglements, they no longer mattered. In the spring of the 16th year of Kangyuan, the emperor passed away, and Chengji ascended the throne, changing the reign title to Jingming. At the new emperor's enthronement ceremony, looking at Chengji in his dragon robes, my heart was filled with pride and tranquility. Mother Empress. After the ceremony ended, the young emperor called to me. Your son is feeling rather nervous. I adjusted his crown for him. Remember what Mother Empress told you. As a ruler, one must take benevolence and virtue as the foundation, and put the people first. As long as you have the people in your heart, there is no need to be afraid. Chenji nodded solemnly. Your son will remember Mother Empress's teachings. Duaning was honored as the Empress Dowager, while I was honored as the Holy Mother Empress Dowager. Yanshu was elevated to noble grand consort. Her son Chengqing was made a prince, and little Sophia was also made princess and Ning. In both the outer court and the inner palace, all was peaceful and harmonious. Those bloody struggles seemed like matters from the distant past. This day, I was having tea in the garden of Jingfu Palace when Yanshu brought Sophia to pay respects. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager. She performed the proper courtesies, yet her eyes held a mischievous glint. Have you been well lately? Very well. I smiled and pulled little Sophia over. You've grown taller again. Sophia snuggled into my arms coquettishly. Mother Empress, Sophia wants to hear a story. What story do you want to hear? I want to hear. Stories from when you were young. Yanshu and I exchanged a smile. Stories from when I was young. That is a very, very long story. About rebirth, about redemption, about how a woman let go of hatred and found true happiness. Everything from my past life feels like a nightmare. In this life, I am living very well.